All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Hannah Crapeau, and I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Certiport. We're happy to have everyone joining us for our third Certified Academy IT webinar today. Feel free to drop into the chat. Let us know where you're joining us from. I'm going to open things up here for everyone. Let us know what courses you teach, and we can hopefully share some information that will be useful to you and to your learners this afternoon. Now, this session is being recorded, so everyone will receive a link to the full recording via email after our presentation has wrapped. If you do have questions, because everyone is currently on mute, please feel free to drop those either into the Q&A or the chat feature, and we'll make sure to address those with our panel as those come up. Now, today we're so pleased to be talking about preparing candidates for careers in cybersecurity. And we're excited to be joined by a team of incredible experts from Microsoft: Rod Trent, Senior Program Manager of Security and AI, Brody Castle, Principal Cybersecurity Consultant, Ray Wolfram, Senior Product Manager of Security, and Edward Walton, Microsoft Global Black Belt in Security. And I have to say, Edward, I think you have the title that we're all looking for. So
Coolest name for
we're
sure.
grateful for all of you taking the time to be here with us today. Let me go ahead and stop sharing so that we can see everyone's faces. Just to get things kicked off, I'd love to have some quick introductions. So Rod, we'll go ahead and start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in cybersecurity.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Hannah. And thanks to my colleagues who are here today as well. It's been the political season, so I think I know kind of how it's supposed to work at the beginning. You thank everyone, and then you talk about yourself. Yeah. So I am Rod Trent, Senior Program Manager at Microsoft, where I work on all things security, but also, and I would suggest that most people are the same at Microsoft these days. If you're in a room full of people and you want to find a Microsoft person, just listen for somebody talking about AI. So I also focus on the security aspect of AI here at Microsoft. I have been, when I think about it, and I had to think about this recently. How long have I been in security or cybersecurity? It's literally been my whole career when you consider what I have done, all the way from managing devices and managing laptops and people and accounts and stuff like this. Long before there was this whole focus, stronger focus on security, it was security because it was still just called, IT pro or IT management or whatever in that respect. That industry now has grown to the point where, hey, we get really cool titles and stuff like global black belt, like Edward does have. So that's me.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Rod. Edward, we'll come to you next.
Thank you. My name is Edward Walton. As my title said, I'm a global black belt at Microsoft for security, all things security. The title is something that Microsoft created. I didn't do it myself. It's just a designation for the role that I'm in, right? I work on all things related to SIM technology, Sentinel particularly, and then also our XDR stack. And I also work in AI, more along the Copilot range. So all things security. I didn't start my career in security the way Rod did. I sort of backed into it by virtue of doing other things, and you saw the person that sits closest to the firewall became the security guy back in the day. So it has evolved. I've done a lot, but right now at Microsoft, helping customers live their security journey, make them as secure as they can. Education is the big thing, educating our customers. So that's pretty much what I do from day to day and having fun at it, especially with AI. As Rod said, you want to know if they're from Microsoft, just listen and you'll see the two letters come together, right? And then you know you have a Microsoft person.
Well, we'll get into it today. We're excited to have some experts in cybersecurity and AI here with us. Ray, let's get an introduction into you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Ray Wolfram, Senior Product Manager for Security within the Defender Experts team. I had a rather unorthodox journey to cyber. I cut my teeth in healthcare IT. Actually, I was a sysadmin for School of Medicine, and that was like my very first role. And I was in healthcare when COVID hit, and I worked very closely with security, my security partners, and I wanted to be able to basically be as noble as them. And I knew it was not going to be a frontline responder or first responder, but I wanted to be able to enable, support, and protect our folks, and not just protect livelihoods, but protect lives. So I was able to make that transition with their my partner serving as inspiration and motivation for me to enroll in a master's program for cyber operations and be able to focus on cybersecurity all up. So I've had a non-traditional experience, but it takes all kinds, and I'm excited to represent as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ray. And Brody, will come to you last.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Brody Castle, security consultant with Microsoft Enterprise Security Services. No, it's Microsoft Security Enterprise Services. That's the acronym. Hope you're all doing well.
I don't know.
The acronym is not MESS, although we think that would be hilarious if it was MESS. It is MSES. But anyway, I digress. So I work with customers in post-incident compromise recovery and modernization initiatives through our consulting arm at Microsoft. My areas of expertise are information protection and data security, security operations, identity and access management, and more recently, secure cloud infrastructure. And like my colleagues and friends here, security for AI and AI for security is also top of the priority list. And I work with public sector, defense and intelligence, government customers in Canada, as well as private sector Canadian financial services customers, as well as US private sector customers of various different disciplines.
Well, thank you. We have quite the panel here with us today, so we're excited to get into it. And I'm glad in your introductions, some of you have shared how you've gotten involved in cybersecurity. And I know, to Ray's point, it does take all kinds. We've had different tracks, different things that have brought us here. So I wanted to dive in and just ask our first question. Brody, will come to you first since we came to you last before. How do you think cybersecurity has evolved since you started your career? What's changed with this field? Or what hasn't changed? Maybe that's a shorter question, right?
What hasn't changed? Wow, yeah, loaded question. I mean, cybersecurity, I think the most important change, in my opinion, is awareness, right? It's awareness on how cyber actors can affect the physical world, the business world, and the public space world in ways that years ago we thought could happen, but maybe did not think it would happen. And unfortunately, we are seeing examples of power grids being affected, water supply and treatment centers being affected, public institutions under attack, and degrading the society's confidence in those institutions and in that infrastructure, that critical infrastructure. So we're at a point right now where it's never been a better time to get into cybersecurity because we need everybody. We need defenders from all walks of life with different backgrounds, experiences. I think that's the main change over the last few years is awareness and maturity in the field.
I love that. And I think that bringing those different types of people together, diversity in the field of cybersecurity, to your point, has become so important. And we're glad to see some different demographics represented. Edward, I wanted to come to you next. How do you think cybersecurity has evolved since you've either started your career in IT or even just started working with cybersecurity in general?
I think it's sort of along the same lines that Brody. It used to be something that you evolved into outside of your role or job that you were hired into. It is more deliberate now. So you're seeing it, people are hiring for this particular skill set and assuming that, you know, maybe the foundational things are by virtue of your experience, but not necessarily, but it doesn't have to be necessary, right? You can have a career in cyber and not have to come through the networking ranks, the application development ranks, or I came through the collaboration ranks, right? Rod came from, you know, device management. So it has changed in that perspective. I think it has also evolved in the manner that once you are in it, you pick up other skills. For instance, I don't want to steal Rod's thunder. He may talk about this, but you are a cybersecurity person with a discipline, but now that auxiliary or that minor, if you were in college, your major is cybersecurity, but your minor may be AI now, which seems to be the thing, right? You could be a cybersecurity person, but your minor is threat hunting or things on incident response. So I'm seeing it being a very deliberate field now. You don't have to take a roundabout way unless you are a career changer or someone who wants just morph. You can go directly into it. And now you're starting to see institutions teach it at a lower graduate level rather than, having to get a master's in cyber, which was the only thing. Right now, you can get a cybersecurity undergrad, or you can pick up the discipline as early as high school. You go to one of these STEM schools or charter schools. So that's how I see it. I see the career can start as early as you want, and you can go directly into it rather than have to take a roundabout if you don't want to.
I love that. And Edward, that brings me really nicely into our next point. And Rod, I wanted to come to you because we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
How have certifications and continued learning in the field of cybersecurity become more valuable as this kind of field has evolved?
Well, and when you think of certifications, right? Let's start there. In the past, it was, hey, I need this certification to get this job, right? That's what you did to kind of pad your resume to ensure that when you interview for that role or that thing you want to do, you have the proper credentials. But at the same time, if you're in security or in cybersecurity, I think it's literally the same thing, right? Because we always put this nomenclature on it. It's cybersecurity. Well, it's just it really is just security. It's just a different way or different approach of looking at security in general. But certification and continuing education, it's a way to bolster your existing and learn new skill sets, right? Because it's difficult for a lot of organizations these days to send people to training or invest in the curriculum needed, whether it's labs or whatever it happens to be, for people to learn new skills. When you think about security, again, focusing on the security piece of this industry, right, has grown significantly because the threat actors are constantly evolving and changing their methodologies, their approaches to things. The target of these security efforts are always changing. So there are new things to learn all the time, and it's so super difficult to keep up. A lot of the learning has to be done on the employee's time, unfortunately, in that respect, right? There's a lot of organizations, a lot of employers that support this. Maybe they might support it monetarily, but a lot of times they don't. And it's up to the individual to kind of keep up to date on that skill set. One of the great things that we have invested in at Microsoft, we have several different services and programs around this. If you go to our documentation today, you go to our Learn site, you are going to find free information, free paths to learning these different things that are necessary for your continued learning in those skills today. So while your employer doesn't have to shell out that money, you can find really good, really solid curriculum out there to help, again, to continue the evolution of your skill set for security and cybersecurity.
Appreciate that. And we always love when we can point people to resources, right, that are readily available, because I think to your point, Rod, a lot of that expectation is that it's done on the learner or the employee's own time, right? So being able to find those quickly, I think
Well,
is
and
very
just
helpful.
to kind of add to that, I think it's kind of necessary. Edward was talking a little bit earlier. There is this huge gap in skill sets for security and cybersecurity. Even though there's such huge interest, the gap still exists. And that's why we have invested heavily in these free learn resources, because we think it is absolutely super necessary. Because going back to what Brody was talking about in that discussion, security is not just a single role anymore. It's not just a single person or a single approach. It's literally everybody's job to identify and do security within their environments.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And Ray, I wanted to get your thoughts as someone who's kind of switched career paths. How has your continued learning been valuable as you've kind of transitioned out of healthcare and into cybersecurity?
That's a wonderful question. Not only does it help bridge the gap between my previous professional experience and the skill that I'm trying to evolve and mature, it helps to keep me engaged with the community, right? Because there's a lot of experience that I just simply didn't have coming in as a proper cybersecurity practitioner. And even, with regards to the conference circuit and industry jargon, such a treasure trove of opportunity, but it could be so overwhelming to somebody who is transitioning careers. And so to be able to have almost like a self-directed learning path, right? So for students, I think continuing students, essentially, you have to have that intrinsic motivation, and you have to be comfortable knowing very little, and to be willing to kind of drink from the fire hose and say, okay, in order to be effective in my current role, I'm going to need a minimum level understanding, a minimum proficiency. And now I'm going to have to develop, put my reps in, and develop that resilience to sharpen it even further. So pursuing a master's degree or an additional graduate degree, again, I have other master's degrees, and you can always leverage it, and you can always make that argument, and it brings a more holistic perspective, absolutely. But to be able to focus in on the actual cyber material, to be able to kick the tires on a VM, to understand how to leverage Metasploit, to understand the mind, of a threat actor, I think that these are fundamental skills, tool sets that even if you're not learning on the job, right, because you simply didn't have exposure to it, it's okay to learn that in a very, I want to say, structured setting. And that's often the argument that you get. Well, if you're in school, it's not real life, and you don't understand the chaos that you'll have to navigate. But at least let us have the opportunity there and have that exposure, develop that awareness, because that'll keep us as a value add contributor when we are in those chaotic situations. And then we can leverage all of our other diverse experiences to help drive this home as seamlessly as possible. So the long answer short, education in whatever capacity, whether it's an additional degree or a certification, I think is vital. And even if your current employer does not subsidize it on your behalf, I would really emphasize, where possible, prioritizing it. Again, not just for future professional opportunities, but for your own personal enrichment.
I appreciate that. And I wanted to come back to you, Ray, because you've given us such a good introduction into the next question that I wanted to ask. Thinking about these educational experiences, right? We want to be able to simulate as much as possible what candidates are going to be looking at when they step onto the job. So what skills, you've talked about a couple, do you think educators should be focusing on to prepare students for careers in these cybersecurity positions?
Absolutely, Hannah. So I would say, and this might sound rudimentary or facile, but the technical acumen, absolutely. And it almost goes without saying, but oftentimes some of the pushback is like, oh, well, cyber's not just technical. Absolutely, there's so many different specializations, but having, again, that fundamental base level proficiency, I think, is going to help drive effectiveness across whatever path the individual pursues or gets thrown in, because sometimes org just has restructuring. And so if you're cyber all up sometimes, right? And I think also what is incredibly crucial and helpful is that the business lens. Right. So it's not just this is how one would perform threat hunting. It's also, what is the impact? What does cyber resilience look like, and how does it play into the overall enabling of business operations? So I think those two threads are going to be super powerful to focus on and incorporate in any curriculum.
Love that. And I'm seeing lots of nods from the other panelists as well. Edward, did you have any thoughts about skills that we should be focusing on?
Well, I think I would say focus is when you have a deliberate path that you decide to go down. I think um, we always say this, but it's been used so much. But the people skills and the reasoning, being able to reason against things that you may not have an experience in. So I sort of like the consultative aspect of it. So being able to relate, because oftentimes technologists, especially when you're talking cyber, this seems still very magic to people. They just go, oh, those are security guys, right? You want to be able to communicate very well. And as Ray said, you have to understand the business. Before security, right? We keep putting the word cyber in front of it, but before that, before security, the learning and the skill set was very, very pointed at you can be a programmer. So you went to coding school. You could be a computer engineer. So those degrees around computer engineering. There were some other, but now within security, you can have all of those things that Ray talked about. You can take the word security and put it there as the first name and give it several last names. Security sales, security practitioner, security researcher, security, anything you want to do, right? Security speaker. One of the things that I absolutely love since I've come to be peers and colleagues with my three guests here is that it's the way we collaborate information and learn about each other and learn, hey, I didn't know you did that. That's pretty cool. So when you're an educator, you have to be able to focus on the things that are not necessarily going to be given to you in a curriculum, whether it's structured or unstructured. Networking, your network of colleagues and peers will also enhance that. So those soft skills should be taught inside an educator saying, hey, go to these conferences, get up on stage, public speak, write. I'm a terrible writer. I just am. But those are the things you have to be able to do. If you can't convey in writing to what you can say, then maybe, that's something you get better at, because it's taken for granted. But until someone asks you to write something for official consumption, you really don't know where the gaps are. So the soft skills that are involved, the technicals are given, right? If you're going to be in it, some technical acumen, but you got to be able to do those other things. If you can do that, that will open up a plethora of opportunities for you.
I love that.
Agreed.
The technical is the baseline expectation, right? But some of those soft skills, I think, can put you over the top, which I really appreciate you touching on, Edward. I love that. Brody, any thoughts from you on emphasis or skills that you see as necessary in this type of field?
Ray and Edward did a great job representing a wide swath of skills that I think are important. And I want to emphasize problem solving skills. Where you're going in, working with customers on a post-incident compromise recovery, or you're working with a customer on a modernization opportunity where they're trying to solve a known problem with lead time, given a certain deadline, budgets, etc. You have to work with people. So Edward nailed it. Communication, networking, being able to be in the room, be present, listen, use your consultative listening skills. I can't stress that enough. When I joined Microsoft, one of the courses around intro to consulting at Microsoft, there was a straight up question, and it was like, what's more important, technical or soft skills? And I picked technical, and it was like, no, you're wrong. We want soft skills. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm good at that. That's great. And truly, like, if you put in the time, you can learn anything technical, in my opinion, as long as you have a passion for it. If you're not passionate about it, it's going to be a struggle to learn, in my opinion. But having that, especially these days where we're all on camera and we're all remote, being able to have that uncomfortable, direct conversation with people face to face is extremely important. Not having the distractions, not losing people on 5 different things on their camera, right, or on their computer. You need to have more honest, in-depth, deep dive conversations, human to human. And we're all coming from different backgrounds, and we all have different priorities in our lives. So that problem-solving aspect is extremely important. And on top of that, and the adaptability that comes with being able to work with a wide variety of people and technologies, I think it's also understanding the ethical implications of what you're trying to achieve, right? There's a lot, especially in the world of AI these days, there's a lot of considerations around privacy, around access, around what ultimately certain solutions would be used for, and how confident we can feel with individuals leveraging technology while giving up, potentially sensitive information about themselves or their families or their business or their financial situation. And so we really need to think about the implications of what we stand up, not just because we need something, so let's stand it up quick, but let's build security into the fabric of everything we do to ensure that, as we move forward with these digital AI and soon to be quantum driven lives, we're doing so in a safe and secure and trustworthy manner. And trust is extremely important here.
Appreciate that, Brody. Thank you so much. I think it's vulnerable to share, right, when we get the answer wrong, but I appreciate that you've represented both sides, that there's the hard skills, which, to your point, I think the passion is required, right, to be able to learn and focus on those, but the soft skills really put us over the top. Rod, I hope I'm not doing you a disservice by coming to you last, but any final thoughts that you wanted to share on this question?
Well, a little bit, I think there's just a couple things I would add, just kind of tie everything together. I think just a little bit. I love Brody's comment that the easiest thing to do is learn the technical piece, right? Great example. My daughter, she learned to change the brakes on her car, not from me, but from watching a YouTube video, right? So anybody, if you have the tools, can learn the technical pieces. It's the other stuff I think that's super important to learn or understand, that that's a skill set that you need to have. Because I think a lot of times as security people, let's go back and let's just call ourselves what we are. We're just IT geeks. I think in some respect, we're not very social, or we don't tend to be, or we don't want to be sometimes, right? But it really is those things that take you or take your career to the next level. You need to have that level of communication all the way from the end users you talk to the execs you have to produce reports for. You need to be able to have a unified communication across the board that everybody, literally everybody, understands. You may think that that is difficult. Again, there's a technical piece of that. You can learn that, right? That's something that you can add to your skill set along the way. A couple other things I would suggest too, as part of this part of the discussion, is it's really easy, and you might think that's an impossible way to put it. It's really easy to pivot into cybersecurity, whatever you're doing today, if you have some sense of data. Because when we talk about security and cybersecurity and all these threats and these signals, the base skill set that you need is almost like a data scientist. You need to be able to look through data, understand that data, understand what those things are in that data. We have tools today that help with that, but at the same time, if you can understand that data and that data structure, you're going to be well on your way to doing that. A great example for that, myself and my colleagues here, we co-host a show weekly called the Microsoft Security Insights Show, and we have had people on there that talk about their cybersecurity experiences. We had one on during Women in Cyber this year, or it was last year, maybe she was on. But Maria Thompson, who is the leader of MISA at Microsoft, our partners organization, she started life as a dance instructor, but now she leads the security partner efforts at Microsoft. So it's never too late, and it can always be done. It's really easy to pivot into this world of security. Again, the technical piece, hey, you can have that done, just with a YouTube video or something like that. But it's, again, going back to those soft skills, those are super important. You just never realize.
So I'm seeing people drop into the chat requests for the link to the show, and that leads really nicely, I think, into the next question about how we can get learners excited about pursuing careers in cybersecurity. I think, Rod, when you made the comment that we're all IT geeks, right? I think that people either naturally gravitate toward this area or maybe feel like it's not so much for them. But if you're an educator in the classroom, we need to kind of get every learner in the room on board and excited. So I wanted to come to you first, Rod, and get any thoughts about how to get students engaged and excited about opportunities in IT and cybersecurity.
Well, I would kind of suggest that today it might be a little easier than it was when I was in school or growing up, because everybody is versed in some sort of technology, whether it's just, your mobile screen or something. My 3-year-old grandboy, he's taken amazing pictures with his mom's camera on her phone, and nobody ever taught him how to do that. So there is that opportunity. I think it's a little bit easier today, but at the same time, to get people excited in this, I think one of the first things you could do is just find your favorite news site and just watch the news stories that come in about some of these cyber attacks, and then relate them to like sci-fi and fiction novels and some of these, mystery, these cloaked mysteries and stuff like this. It really is real life. And if that's not something that excites you, then I don't know what's going to excite you, to tell you the truth, because it is an exciting field to be in, because you do learn a lot. You eventually know a lot, and then you have that ability to be able to pass it along to others. One of the things, particularly, you're talking about the EDU market, and getting folks interested in this. One of the things we have at Microsoft is the Microsoft Student Ambassadors Program, We had someone on our show recently to talk about this, one individual that's in college. And this is offered to college age students where they can become Microsoft security ambassadors within their organization. It's almost like an MVP program where we highlight certain individuals that join this program. We give them additional resources. We use them and they use our resources to help get their own colleagues and their own students excited about this stuff. We have that. We have other programs at Microsoft where educators can get the curriculum and stuff for free to be able to teach to their organizations. We have, I know several colleagues of my own that one individual in particular that left Microsoft just to be a college professor because he just loved teaching people. You learn that at Microsoft. We're in front of customers so often, and we are constantly trying to teach our customers and educate them on the things that we think are critical to know, not just with our products, but across the board. Because at Microsoft, we believe that we endeavor to see all of our customers' environments secure, not just if they use our products or not. This is super important, I think, critical to anyone to understand.
Appreciate that. And I love that there's multiple outlets, right, for student focus, but then also teacher resources with curriculum and things like that. Ray, I wanted to come and get your thoughts on how to get students and learners excited about cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hannah, so I think you brought it up earlier, you touched on it, with diversity, right? And so having representation, having folks, because originally I felt that cyber was beyond me, was bigger than me. I was happy to partner with my security colleagues, but I would stay in my lane because it was just right outside of my grasp. And I think making it more accessible would require and does require us to provide that level of visibility and representation for all of the different folks wearing all of the different hats. And I'm going to give a shout out to my colleagues here on the panel, and they extended an opportunity for me to participate as a co-host on the show. And originally I was like, oh goodness, like I'll join an episode for Women in Cyber Month, but what message do I have to share? I'm still developing my technical chops. But through that collaboration, that partnership, we brought in my contacts. I've been able to make more contacts in powerful women, right, of all backgrounds, having all diverse experiences, career changers. And so I think empowering folks and providing that platform and that visibility is going to go a long way in educating others and kind of invigorating them to see themselves as cyber practitioners.
Yeah, we have to create a world where people can see themselves in the roles that we want them to pursue, right? I love that. That's fabulous. So thinking about this advice of getting students excited, I think the educator component, of course, is so important that we not only need to have those resources available, but educators need to be current on the changes that are coming in the field so that they feel prepared to empower learners to pursue this type of opportunity. So Brody, I wanted to come to you, get your thoughts. How can educators stay current with all of the rapid technology changes that are happening with security these days?
Great question. I'll throw this out. Can you stay current? Is it even possible to stay current? It's just moving so quickly. It's a manager once told me, and I say it every day now, we're just all just flying by the seat of our pants, effectively, right? But to actually answer your question, first off, I think for me, a lot of the passion that I get out of the impact that I have in my role is knowing that I can have a real world effect on organizations, on communities, on people in a positive light, and trying to ensure that we secure, our way of life and people's ways of lives moving forward into the future. And tying the work back to real world examples can give folks a sense of purpose, right? Mission driven purpose. Whether it's, unfortunately, in the past, we've seen Ukraine have their power grid knocked offline because of cyber threat actors. We've seen water treatment facilities in the United States, go under a temporary situation where it wasn't available. There's been all kinds of examples of critical infrastructure, which is a broadening term. I think that includes all kinds of things from power, water, food, broadband, financial services, and government services And each and every day there are effects, and whether or not they hit the news or not is one thing, and the scope of their effect is really what's going to bubble that up to the top of the mainstream news. So if you can give people, if you can tie the work back to a purpose and not just, hey, we need you, it's not sexy if you tell somebody like, oh yeah, we need you to look at all these, random little alerts and tell me what's false positive or not. And yeah, that's roles that in security that exists. But ultimately, let's think about like the why, right? Why are we here? What are we doing? And how can we help? How can we help one another? So real world examples, hands-on labs to tie into those real world examples, because I'm a kinesthetic learner. I got to do it, right? I can read all about it, but I got to do it, right? I took my CISSP years ago, and it was the greatest book I ever read to put me to sleep right away. But I eventually got through it because there's a lot of theory, right? But honestly, I get excited about working on something. I think a lot of people do as well. And if that's, if you're passionate about learning in other avenues rather than hands-on, that's fine. I'm not calling you out. But giving people that time to work on the thing instead of just talking about the thing resonates, I think, with a large section of individuals who get into cybersecurity in the first place, including all of us neurodivergent Star Trek nerds who want to play on the computer, because that's just, why we're here.
I love that. Edward, I wanted to get your thoughts on staying current with the changes in the field. What do you think?
I mean, I have to mirror Brody's thing. Staying current is an abstract, it's an abstract concept, right? We work at Microsoft and it seems like we're 3 days behind, right? I think staying current is not trying to know everything, which is why I love the show that we do every week, because we all bring something and we all have different interests and we like to share. So staying current is I'm a very hands-on person also. Being able to go do it, and with the just plethora of tools out there, plus the cloud, no matter whose cloud you're in, you don't have to see and be hypothetical or theoretical in your learning. You can go put your hands on it and break it. I'm a person of, did I break it? Now can I fix it? If I fixed it, what was broken, right? Reading is I love to read. It can be boring sometimes, but with a smattering of graphics to keep my attention. Hey, pretty bird, you go through that. And now, I mean, you could go to YouTube University and learn anything, right? I know that's not a real thing, but it's a catchphrase. You can go to YouTube and see everything. And being able to come back and convey thoughts, right? And solve problems. That there's no one way to stay current, but you need a combination of things. You talked about certifications. Certifications don't mark you as an expert. It marks you as someone who's willing to invest time to be exposed to a technology at a most basic level. Now, some certifications are more robust than others, but it indicates that, hey, I'm going to invest in me, in my learning, whether it's mandatory by virtue of my job. It should be voluntarily. Ray said, you have to invest in your own education, right? To do these things. I learn more after work than I ever would learn while I'm at work. Because at work, especially in Brody's as the consultant role, and my role, it's a pressure cooker. You're expected to be the subject matter expert in front of someone. And that doesn't mean being right. That means speaking in confidence about the thing that they brought you in for, right? You can give a very good wrong answer if you sound confident in it, right? And then you go back and do the research. I'm always asking questions. Look for help. That keeps you current also when you want to do something, get outside your comfort zone. So it changes day to day. Some days it's just strictly looking and reading. Some days it's hands-on in the lab. Some days it's actually solving a problem for the customer. And some days you just want to show somebody something cool, like, hey, guess what I saw? And do it that way. Emulate somebody's, their learning style. I emulate stuff from Rob and the way I consume information and do these things. So today, the way I learn may not be the way I learn tomorrow. So be flexible, get a lot of peers, get outside your comfort zone, and pick up a tech hobby. Find something. I got a stack of stuff I've geeked out on. I need to give away everything from IoT when it was hot. I still have a pair of Google glasses from back in the day when I taught myself how to program Google glasses. Still have a pair. It still works too, I think. So be flexible in your learning. Emulate some other people in the way they learn, and also create your own method of learning. And I think there's no one way. So, and understand you may not be current. You will be relevant, but you may not be current. And currently is just where you are versus where the technology is. And that's it. And have fun doing it, right? If you be one last thing, stay current by making deliberate time to learn, not when you have time. Because if you don't put scheduled time for you to learn and do something, priorities will do that, from kids to work to whatever else. So be deliberate in your time to study. I have a study time every day, at least 1 hour. And if I do that, then you'll find yourself a tendency to be aware of changes. That's it. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it is a concerted effort, and I think that's a point that's come up multiple times throughout this discussion, that it has to be purposeful. It's something that we need to decide to pursue and decide to stay relevant. I like the word relevant as opposed to current, right? I don't know that there's a way that we can all stay on top of it, but stay in the field. I appreciate that.
It's hard to stay relevant too.
Yeah. We're all just trying to keep up a little bit, right? It's starting to get faster than we're able to, but doing our best. I think that that's super important.
I'll give you a scenario about relevant and staying current. In the realm of security and cyber, it's like jumping out the plane and they throw you the parachute after. Figure it out on the way down. And that's what it is.
We're all just trying to catch it on our way down, right? We're all falling. We're just trying to
catch you.
catch
I'll
it
catch you,
before we
Edward.
hit the ground.
I'll catch you before you hit the ground.
Well, I wanted to close out. We've had some wonderful discussion, great advice, but I wanted to give everyone one last chance, and it could be that there's something that we haven't touched on yet that you guys wanted to bring up. But any advice for our learners and for our educators who are interested in this very nebulous field, right, of cybersecurity? So Rod, we'll come to you first. Any advice, final words that you want to share?
Yeah, and it is just kind of to add just a little nuance to what everybody has said already about staying current, because I think that's important. There's some other things I think you can do as part of that. I love how Edward, if he does this, he'll show you his biceps. And then Ray mentioned this earlier. It's about the reps. It's about, you want to treat learning or staying current like you do any other type of activity, like exercise, right? You have to make it a habit, make it part of your persona, if you will. But in a fun perspective, like Edward said, if it's tiresome, if it's boring, if it's seems like work, then do something else, right? Yeah, this industry or working in this industry can be impactful, right? And pay the bills, but at the same time, you don't want to do something that is super dreadful. And the way that I kind of look at that from my perspective, I'm fortunate enough, I spent a lot of time in front of people. One of the things I think you can do to kind of keep that excitement, keep the momentum going, is to be part of these communities. There are a number of really good, solid security communities out there. I wouldn't say it's on Reddit where everybody types in caps and seems like they're yelling at you, but there are solid communities out there, right? Where you can find these things that we have some at Microsoft. There's some in other respects. There's a lot of really cool conferences. But from my perspective, how I kind of stay current, and maybe this will help someone else, right, is I listen to other people and understand what is impacting them. And then based on what's impacting them, if I have a gap in my knowledge of what that thing is, then that's what I use as my little bullet point task list. This is something I need to go hone in on. This is something I need to know, because if it's impacting this one person, it's probably going to be impacting others. So I want to be well versed in that so that I can have that discussion with those other community members and things like that. So last thing is, don't avoid product alerts, please. All right. Those are learning experiences too. Even in our security products, even patching. Patching is still a very important part of security. Don't ignore those alerts. They are there for a reason.
Love that, Rod. Thank you. Ray, any thoughts?
I just love the patching's important. That is the
The blanket statement that we're going to put out there here at the end.
True. This is true. I would say you got it, to Edward's point, you have to be deliberate in your decision to make time. I would push back a little bit on Rod's point. If it's not fun, maybe reconsider another path. When you got a lot going on, and just in life, and you got a lot of responsibilities, it's not going to be so fun to continuously subject yourself to failure and rejection, which is something you're going to need to get comfortable with, no matter how relevant and current your knowledge set is, because that is just the nature of the beast. You could have all of the most fantastic knowledge, the greatest ideas, but if you haven't been investing in your core skills, your ability to communicate your ideas to others, if you haven't really honed in on your actual technical acumen in the way that was like required of you, you're not going to be the best fit for an opportunity, but that's okay because it's a learning experience and you're going to internalize that. There's a feedback loop. And I think in order to be effective as both the student and the teacher, it's the flexibility and that scientific method of, I'm going to try this. And it may not work 100%, and maybe 80% is good enough, right?
Mhm.
So you're leading with empathy, you're leading with humility, but it's not just for others, it's for yourself as well. And you have to have a very structured vision of your overarching goal, and yet leave some ambiguity for how exactly you're going to achieve it. Right. So you just have to be committed to working towards your future state, your North Star, as it were. But you also have to appreciate that you might have to take a bit of a circuitous path to it. It may not be from A to B, right? You may need to get a little bit creative in your overall path moving forward. And so I think flexibility, I think tenacity, and I think resilience are going to be key across the board. But that's just my humble 2 cents, right? And I just started as a lowly sysadmin, and I've made it to Microsoft, but it was not because I was never rejected. I was rejected a lot, right? And that's, I think you just have to be comfortable with that and take it for what it's worth and apply it to moving forward and next steps from there.
Well, and going back to those soft skills, right, that we talked about earlier, where it's a lot of being comfortable with change and being creative with your approach to be able to get to where you're hoping to go. Appreciate that. Brody, any final thoughts from you that you'd want to share?
Yeah, for sure. So advice I want to share with learners about careers in security or IT is just continuously to be curious, break things, break things. Breaking things is fun, and then you have to fix things, right? Growing up, it was me breaking the family computer repeatedly and getting in trouble, and then breaking the school's computer repeatedly and getting in trouble, and learning how to fix it was a driver because my curiosity got the better of me, and that was a good thing in the end, ultimately, because that curiosity has led me to a fantastic career at an organization that has global impact. I'm going to have some overlap with my colleagues here, and I think that's okay because we're going to reemphasize it. But practicing problem solving, important. Sometimes I over solution in my life and in my personal life. Just ask my wife. But it's an important career area if you love solutioning issues. So I would say if you're into that, you think you always have the answer for something, you always want to dive in and fix something, join security. We need you. The focus on continuous learning through certifications, great. I would also just like to give folks a don't burn out warning.
Yes.
Have a life. Work on your physical and mental and sleep state. Sleep, super important. Everything outside of security will help you be a better professional. Staying up 22 hours on the computer is probably not a good long-term solution for continuous learning and development. Take care of yourselves. I'm just pushing 40. Trust me, it only gets harder for me. All right. So I know, Edward and Rod, they're a bit older. We'll just call it that. What else? So it's hands-on labs. You got to lab it up, right? And now, luckily, I don't have to break the family computer anymore because I am the family computer. But also, we have cloud infrastructure that we can stand up, we can shut down, we can blow up, we can rebuild. You get stuck on something completely and you've completely foobarred it because you've ran one of Edward's scripts. Well, I can just rebuild it, no big deal, like it's all good. It's all good. And then the community engagement aspect. I mean, so not only this community that I'm a part of on the Microsoft Security Insight Show, streaming weekly. Check the chat for the link. But also, I've been a part of some really cool communities internally at Microsoft, the worldwide security community. Microsoft gives you opportunities to just moderate for speakers. So if you're feeling anxious about speaking on a topic, which I still do because there's a lot of smart people at Microsoft, or in any organization, see if you would host someone. See if you would give someone else a voice who needs help projecting their voice to a larger audience. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to enable that individual to get themselves out there who might not be a super extrovert like myself. And it gives you the speaking, communication, and presentation skills that you need to be in that boardroom one day and have the difficult conversation.
Thank you, Brody. Appreciate that. Very well-rounded piece of advice. We're grateful for it. Edward, any final thoughts to take us out?
To one of the listeners, he asked what would be some great ways or links or something to stay relevant, current. Swap them out, right? I put in there the old way is just do the things that you know. You could go to whatever website or information exchange medium of the technology of your choice. So I just threw in there YouTube, right? It's easy, it's visual, it has context as well, and you can follow, stop, and start. But the new way is AI. And I think I put an example, use the AI of your choice, and you can go in and try this with Copilot inside the Edge browser. Create me a learning plan based on this technology for entry level. And it'll write you a plan, right? And you're learning at the same time you're asking it to help you learn. And when you do that, I'm also a big fan of looking at job postings, right? That doesn't mean you're looking for a job. I think I'll say it on this show. I hope nobody hears, in my org hears this, but I like interviewing. I try to get an interview a month, right? And people, why are you doing it if you're not looking? Well, it does several things. It teaches you interaction, it teaches you self-promotion and confidence, and it also lets you learn what technologies are most sought after. When you look at job descriptions, it will tell you within your industry where you can focus your energy on, right? Because salespeople aren't selling things that people aren't buying. And so they're looking for people that can support this, or they're looking for job skills. So go to your job searching site of choice, LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever it may be, and grab a job description of something that you want to be. And it'll give you a learning plan. The job description can be the learning plan. Must be relevant in this, must know compliance in this technology, must have this right here. Don't worry about the experience stuff. Remember, this is a learning journey. You can take the job description and requirements and you can create a learning plan from there. I still do that to this day, right? And it served me well. So the industry will tell you what you can put your energy behind that will afford you a quality of life and the quality of living that you want, right? The field is wide open, and the compensation model can be very lucrative for those that do it, right? Some are going to pay more than others. Some are going to be harder to learn. I couldn't code if my life depended on it, right? But you do it, right? So YouTube it, AI it, and look at job descriptions. Those can be your learning paths right there, and they'll get you going.
Love that. Thank you. And using the technology to learn the technology, I think that's a great way to take us out. Just the idea that there's so many resources available, being able to leverage AI to help us find what's going to be most relevant, I think is a great path forward. So I just wanted to give a quick thank you, Rod, Ray, Brody, Edward, for taking the time to share your expertise with us. We're so grateful for you sharing, your past experience and also advice for how our educators can get students prepared for careers in cybersecurity. I did just want to give a quick piece of advice and announcement that we're going to be having another session here in a couple weeks on November 20th. So we would love to have everyone joining us for that one as well. Continuing the conversation about IT education and the fields and opportunities that are available to your learners. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who's been here learning with us today. We hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and keep learning, and we will see you all in a couple weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Woo.
Everyone.